Good morning. Today we start our history lesson to growth of nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology that promotes the interest of a particular nation, especially with an aim of gaining sovereignty over its homeland. Various factors are responsible for the growth of nationalism. International factors like the French Revolution, influence of Western ideologies and Western literature, all are some of the international factors. Whereas our main topic is to learn about the national factors which caused for the growth of nationalism in India. The main national factors are: first one, economic exploitation of India. Second one, repressive colonial policies. Third one is social religious reform movements. And fourth is the role of press. First we learn economic exploitation of India. The British exploited almost all sections of Indian society, mainly peasants, artisans and craftsmen, working class, and educated Indians. The British increased land revenue to exorbitant levels, and the peasants found it very difficult to pay the taxes. When they found it difficult to pay the taxes, they approached the moneylenders to get loans. And due to the inability to pay the loans in time and the inability to pay tax in time, these moneylenders and zamindars exploited and punished the Indian peasants. Thus, the economic policies of the British proved to be harmful to the Indian peasants. Artisans and craftsmen were also exploited by the British. The British turned India into a marketplace for the finished machine-made goods of British. They exported raw materials from India and imported the finished goods to India. And these finished goods were superior in quality and cheaper in rate. That's why demand for the Indian-made goods decreased. Demand for machine-made goods coming from England increased. Thus, gradually, customers for Indian-made goods decreased and there were no customers at all. When there was no customers to purchase the products of the Indian craftsmen and artisans, they had to stop their production. Thus, the artisans and craftsmen engaged in cottage industries and small-scale industries faced unemployment. The next one is working class, exploitation of working class. When the British started industries in India, large number of Indians were employed in these industries. And these workers were very poorly paid. They had to work long hours in the factories and their working condition was also not good. And these workers formed a new class in the society that is called the working class. Although their number was very less, they were able to form a public opinion against the British. And one more section who were subjected to the economic exploitation of the British was the educated Indians. When the British introduced English education in India, Many Indians got educated, English educated, and these Indians hoped only in the government jobs. They wanted to secure a government job so that they may be able to get a livelihood. But there was tight competitions, and that is why most of these educated Indians could not secure a government job. And those who got the job, they also paid very less. So thus both employed and unemployed educated Indians were not satisfied. Finally, all these Indian society or Indian people who were subjected to the economic exploitation of the British came to know that the reason for their miseries is the British presence in India, the British dominance in India, and the only remedy is to free themselves from the British rule. Thus, they started to unite together and to work for their freedom. So, this economic exploitation caused for the growth of nationalism. The second reason is the repressive colonial policies of the British. During the time of Lord Lytton, he was Lord Lytton was the Viceroy of India from 1876 to 1880, and he introduced so many repressive policies in India. He was totally a suppressive ruler. And certain policies introduced by Lord Lytton caused for the enmity and hatred of Indians. Some of the policies introduced by Lord Lytton are the Grand Delhi Darbar. Lord Lytton organized a Grand Delhi Darbar in the year 1877. It was organized in order to announce Queen Victoria as the Empress of India. And in this Darbar, he spent lakhs of rupees. But majority of the Indians were suffering due to famines. Nothing was done for the victims of the famines. When the British were spending lakhs of rupees for their pomp and show, they were not ready to do anything for the poor and the victims of famine, Indian people. Next one is the Vernacular Press Act. Lytton passed the Vernacular Press Act in 1878. And according to the Vernacular Press Act, it was considered as an offense if an Indian is publishing anything in the newspaper, in vernacular newspaper, which might excite feelings of anti-British feelings. According to the Vernacular Press Act, the Indians had no freedom to publish anything that may create anti-British feelings. So it was a deliberate attempt of the British to stop the growth of nationalism. They forbade Indians from publishing articles against the British in regional languages. Vernacular language, that means local language or regional language. So the local newspapers in regional language were strictly censored, and if any articles or anything found which is against the British, they took action against such newspapers. So that was the Vernacular Press Act. They passed an Arms Act in the year 1878. And according to the Arms Act, Indians cannot carry arms without a license. but this was not applicable for the Europeans in India. Another repressive policy of the British was reducing the age limit from 21 years to 19 for the Indian Civil Service exam. During the time of Lord Lytton, he reduced the maximum age limit for appearing Indian Civil Service exam from 21 years to 19 years. This was also made in order to minimize the number of Indians who are appearing in the ICS exams. He abolished the import duties on British textiles. This badly affected the Indian industries. That was one of the reasons for the ruin of cottage and small scale industries also. So these were some of the repressive colonial policies introduced during the time of Lord Lytton. Again, one of the policy of the British is the Gilbert Bill. Gilbert Bill that actually is not a repressive policy. Sir C.P. Gilbert was a law member in the Viceroy's Council. C.P. Gilbert was a British law member in Viceroy's Council, and he introduced a bill in 1883, which is known as the Gilbert Bill. The purpose of this bill was to abolish judicial discrimination based on ethnicity or race distinctions. As per the practices in India, an Indian magistrate had no right to try a European offender in the law courts. This was a visible manifestation of racial discrimination. C.P. Gilbert wanted to abolish this practice. That's why he introduced a bill which is known as Gilbert Bill. When the bill was introduced by C.P. Gilbert, the European community in India opposed the bill because that is against the superiority of the Europeans. When the Europeans opposed, the Indians counter-opposed the Europeans. Anyhow, finally the bill was withdrawn and a moderate bill was passed. And as per the new bill or new law, an Indian judge who is holding the rank of a sessions judge or a district magistrate can try a European offender. An Indian judge who is holding the rank of a district magistrate or a sessions judge can try a European offender. So from all these, the Indians could realize that Indians cannot expect justice and fair play where the interest of British are involved. And thus these policies were also, the colonial policies of the British were also another factor for the growth of nationalism in India. The third one is socio-religious reform movements. The British introduced English education in India in the 19th century. And as a result of the introduction of this English education, humanitarianism developed and the Indians developed a scientific outlook in life. They felt the need of abolishing the evils from the society, the wrong practices from the society. Thus, a number of socio-religious reform movements emerged. When the Indian people realized the need of reforming Indian society and religion, number of socio-religious reform movements emerged or started. Some of the prominent socio-religious reform movements were Brahma Samaj, by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Arya Samaj by Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Ramakrishna Mission by Swami Vivekanand, and Satyashodak Samaj by Jyotiba Phule. These reformers also contributed to the growth of nationalism. These reformers, as well as the reform movements, contributed to the growth of nationalism. They highlighted in their speeches the glory of Indian culture and heritage. They praised the importance of women in the Indian national movement. Swami Dayananda Saraswati raised the slogan that India is for Indians, and for the first time the word Swaraj was also used by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. They opposed the domination of British over India. They were against casteism, rigid casteism, and they were against the inequalities prevailed in India. They preached for equality in the society. So the preachings of these reformers and the activities of these reformers and these reform movements motivated the Indians to unite. Finally, they demanded a society which is free from caste distinctions and discriminations. So thus the activities of these reformers united the Indians and brought them together into a common platform to fight against the British. The last factor is the role of press. By the middle of 19th century, so many newspapers were also edited in both English as well as in local languages, regional languages also. Some of the newspapers, important newspapers were the Times of India, the Hindu, Amrit Bazaar Patrika, Pioneer, Statesman. So these were some of the main newspapers. Besides this, newspapers in regional language were also edited. And these newspapers also played a very important role in arousing nationalism. How they helped to arouse nationalism? They criticized the unjust policies of the British. These newspapers brought the news, the happenings in and around the world. Indian people also came to know the things happening in and around the world. These newspapers popularized the modern ideas like liberty, equality, fraternity, nationalism, democracy, etc. etc. And these newspapers helped in circulating ideas from one part of the country to another part of the country. They connected nationalist leaders living in different parts of the country. So newspapers were very helpful in sharing the ideas of the nationalist leaders who are living in one part of the country with the people living in other parts of the country through their writings and through the articles they edited in the newspapers and magazines. Thus, newspapers played a very important role in spreading nationalism or the growth of nationalism. So, these all are about the growth of factors responsible for the growth of nationalism. Our next topic is precursors of the Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress is the first all India political party established in India. Before the formation of Indian National Congress, many other regional political parties were also established in India. And these regional political parties are termed as precursors of the Indian National Congress. The first political association formed in India was the Landholders Society in Kolkata in 1838. In 1866, Dadabhai Naoroji established another political association that is called East India Association. It was established in England. It had its branches in Bombay, Chennai, Kolkata, etc. He established this East India Association in order to inform the matters of the Indians to the British citizens as well as the British Parliament. Dadabhai Naoroji was of the opinion that the British are basically just and good. And if the Indians are laying down their problems before the government and before the people, they will find out a solution to our problems. That was the opinion of Dadabhai Naoroji. Thus, he laid on the foundation of East India Association in England in 1866. The next political association was Indian Association. It was established by Surendranath Banerjee in 1876. He established this Indian Association in order to make it an All India political association. But unfortunately, it could not it could not achieve a pan-India character. Its main objectives were creation of a strong body of public opinion. And another important objective of the Indian Association was integration of Indian people on the basis of common political interest. The third objective was promote Hindu-Muslim unity. And the fourth one was mass participation in public movement. So these were the main objectives of the Indian Association established by Surendranath Banerjee. It had some achievements. The Indian Association conducted agitation against much of the repressive policies started by Lord Lytton. We have already learned in the class that Lord Lytton was a repressive ruler and he introduced some repressive measures in India like the Vernacular Press Act, Arms Act, License Act, reducing the age limit for ICS examination from 21 to 19 years. These all were some of the repressive policies adopted by Lord Lytton. And all these measures were agitated, opposed by the Indian Association. The next political association was the Indian National Conference. Surendranath Banerjee convened the Indian National Conference in 1883 in Kolkata. He convened two sessions of the Indian National Conference. The first one was in 1883 and the second one was in 1885. And when he convened the second session of the Indian National Conference in 1885, the same time the Indian National Congress also convened its session. And he found the objectives of both these organizations were similar. That's why the Indian National Conference merged with the Indian National Congress. Now we learn about the formation of Indian National Congress. Much of the Indian leaders like Vomesh Chandra Banerjee, Dadabhai Nauroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tayebji, Justice Ranade, like leaders were making plans for the formation of an All India political association. And when discussions were going on, fortunately, a help came from the European side. A.O. Hume was a British retired civil service officer in India. And he, in consultation with the Indian leaders, made an organization named Indian National Union in the year 1884. A.O. Hume, in consultation with the Indian leaders, formed the Indian National Union in 1884. And the union conducted its conference in the year 1885. Representatives from different parts of the country were invited to participate in the conference, and thus 72 delegates from different parts of the country, 72 important leaders from different parts of the country participated in that conference. And when the conference was going on, Dadabhai Nauroji made a suggestion to change the name of this organization. Thus, the name was changed from Indian National Union to Indian National Congress. And this is the this is how the Indian National Congress established. So, Indian National Congress established on 28 December 1885 in Mumbai. It was the first All India Political Association. And when it formed, it was welcomed by the formation of Indian National Congress was welcomed by the then Viceroy, Lord Dufferin. He hoped that the Indian National Congress would act as a safety valve for the popular discontent of the Indians, and thereby the British can safeguard their interest in India. The British and the Viceroy welcomed the formation of Indian National Congress only because they wanted to make Indian National Congress, they wanted to act Indian National Congress act as a safety valve so that the British can safeguard their interest in India. So thus it was welcomed by the Viceroy, but gradually the attitude of the British authorities changed. They started to criticize the Indian National Congress and they started to turn against the Indian National Congress. When Congress interfered in the political matters of India, the attitude of the British changed. They turned against the Congress. They warned Congress that Congress should not interfere in the political matters of India. They can just interfere in the social matters of India. But Congress was not ready to accept. Thus, the British government started to criticize the Indian National Congress. They started to attack the Indian National Congress and they started to weaken the Indian National Congress. Some of the main objectives of the Indian National Congress are to promote friendly relations between nationalist workers from different parts of the country. Second one is to develop and consolidate feeling of national unity. Third one, to formulate popular demands and present them before the British government. And the fourth one is to train and organize public opinion. So these were the main aims and objectives of the Indian National Congress at the time of its formation. Now we have covered the main two topics: growth of nationalism, that is, factors responsible for the growth of nationalism, and Indian National Congress. Along with the Indian National Congress, we learned some of the precursors of the Indian National Congress, like the Indian Association, East India Association, Indian National Conference. So our topic is over. This lesson is over. You read the lesson well. You understand the lesson. Find out the question answers and learn it. Thank you.